And it's Halloween here in Baltimore, and so we're going to tell ghost stories about the Babe today. We're also going to visit some of his historic haunts and some of his family's historic haunts.
Babe Ruth enthusiast Charlie Vascellaro is a Baltimore-based writer and part-time bartender. He says he's felt a lifelong connection with Babe Ruth, and today he shows us some local Ruth family haunts.
Well, here we are, 216 Emery Street. This is the house where Babe Ruth was born. It was actually his mother's parents' house. Back in the old days, that was a popular way of giving birth. You go to mom's house and give birth. Babe's mom, Kate, actually had 6 miscarriages, and Babe was her firstborn, and Babe had one sister who also survived. But he was born here, lived here for a very brief period of time, but it still serves as the Babe Ruth Birthplace Museum, visited by baseball fans all during the baseball season. This is perhaps the most historic haunt. This is St. Mary's School, later Cardinal Gibbon School, now neither, but it is where Babe Ruth grew up. It is where his parents placed him when he was a troubled young kid, and they brought him here to kind of set his life in order. Right out here on this field is where Babe Ruth learned to play baseball, and this is where Babe Ruth became Babe Ruth. Back there is the building which would have been the dorms when the Babe lived here. He would have lived in that building with a bunch of other kids living in barracks-like style, beds all lined up next to each other. There's also a big gymnasium there, and in the entryway to the gymnasium is a mural, a beautiful tile mosaic of the Babe. Hopefully that can be preserved as well, but when you're in there, looking at that mural makes your hair stand on end and gives you goosebumps. It's a very spiritual place. There are people here who've had firsthand paranormal accounts. I don't know if they want to talk about them, but it's happened here. It's really kind of a modest marker, considering she's the mother of perhaps the most famous man who ever lived. Just stated there, matter-of-factly, Catherine Ruth, mother of George Herman Babe Ruth Jr. I mean, she's the mother of perhaps the most famous man ever, or at least one of them. So her claim to fame is that she was Babe's mother, although she would have never known that. Babe was only 13 when she died. When I came here the first time, this marker was not here, and even the rest of the surroundings in the pictures I took had a gloominess about them. I never felt frightened here, but I did feel, very disheartened and sad that the Babe never took the time to put a headstone for his mother. And again, it seemed to make me think that they must have had a very distant relationship. It looks nice now, and I feel better about being here now than I did the last time I was here. George Herman Ruth Sr., Babe is George Herman Ruth Jr., beloved husband of Martha E., which would have been his second wife. No reference here to father of Babe Ruth like we saw on Kate's grave marker, which was the headstone, which was added many years later, and the Babe was already who he was. One thing the father and mother did have in common, George Sr. and Kate, is they both died tragic deaths, and they were kind of young. Babe's dad was actually killed as trying to break up a barroom brawl between some brother-in-laws of his, some family members. But it's got that act of finality. 1918, the Babe's dad's dead. So even though he lived like an orphan when he was a kid, he truly was an orphan by the time 1918 came along. So here we are now on the corner of Utah Street and Lombard Street in the city. This is a bar called The Goddess, which now works as a gentleman's club. Way back when, this establishment was one of the Babe's dad's bars, one of the few saloons he owned in the city. And actually the last bar that he ever owned in the city, because this is where the Babe's dad died. He was actually breaking up a fight between 2 of his own brother-in-laws. He tried to move the fight outside and at least get one of the guys to leave. Well, before he knew it, now he's in a fight with one of his brother-in-laws. And the guy gives him a shove, and he knocked his head somewhere on the sidewalk or on a curb. They took him to the hospital, but he died that night. Well, we've visited the building where the Babe was born. We stopped by his mom's burial site and his father's grave site. We also went to the Goddess, which is the bar his dad used to own way back when. And now we're here at Camden Yards, where they put a statue of the Babe. Where it just says, Babe's Dream. George Herman Babe Ruth, Baltimorean. Never mind he was on the Yankees or whatever. Babe was from Baltimore first, which is why we're here today.